In sports, if you want to be the best, there are no off days. Happy New Year! We've made it to 2025. Welcome into the No Off Days podcast. I'm Scott Smith. We have Chris Cato. BK is in the booth. We will catch up with him shortly. How was your New Year's celebration?
We are still celebrating. I haven't taken the Christmas tree down yet, Scott. No,
not.
I told you staying up until February at least.
Well, we got the palm tree behind you. We took out the Christmas tree that was in studio. I understand we both had an opportunity to go to a bowl game here in the downtime.
Yes. Painfully, yes. We went to one.
A couple really bad bowl games.
I love the ReliaQuest Bowl. Great event for the area. Two great matchups. Loved the bowl. Didn't like how my team Alabama played.
The result.
It was not pretty.
Yeah.
How was yours in the Rose Bowl?
Yeah. I went out there to watch my Ducks, and it was painful. At least I was there for the worst game that I've ever seen. Sometimes like you watch a football game and their season comes to an end and you're like, man, we still had some left in the tank. If this broke this way, then we could have done it. We could have made. Now I have no questions. It was like they pulled the plug on the season, and it was early and it was painful. The best part of the game was the flyover. They had a stealth bomber that flew over the Rose Bowl.
Well, that had to be cool.
The whole experience was kind of cool though. I mean, obviously it's an old venue. You kind of go into downtown Pasadena. They had the Rose Parade. Caught a little bit of that, grabbed some lunch, watched the early game, and then like a bunch of people you walk like 30 minutes or more through this like nice neighborhood, and then all of a sudden there's a stadium right there. So it was fun up until kickoff, and then it just my pain just wouldn't end. It just wouldn't end. And then I hop on a plane that night to go back, and I got Ohio State fans. They're just pummeling me with insults. So there you go.
Well, I'm sorry that you had that experience.
I know.
Sometimes you need that. You need to just wash yourself clean of the past season.
Yeah.
Much like that rain at Raymond James Stadium washed my Bama team right off the field in the first quarter. Couldn't even get past the 25-yard line. Yeah, it was tough. Hey, but we turned the calendar on a new year here.
Yeah, we need BK to come in and hose us off. Here we go. Brian, how was your time celebrating the new year?
I was right there with Cato in that same stadium, getting drenched and watching, I guess, a football team.
It's a house of horrors. Raymond James Stadium for Alabama, it's a house of horrors.
My wife has banned me from spending any more money on Alabama
my family's
games.
not letting me go anymore either.
But it was fun. It was still fun to see the Tide play.
Yeah.
Well, Happy New Year.
Same to you.
There's still plenty of games to watch to play out. So hopefully we can muster the energy to get back into it at some point. But BK, what do we have on today's program?
Good show today. We're going to go up to D.C. to the district and check in with Grant Paulson. He's one of the big radio guys up there. Going to find out what his take is and what's Washington's take on this playoff game coming up with the Bucs.
Should be a good one. Rematch of Week 1.
Yeah.
It was all Tampa Bay in that Week 1 matchup, but of course that was just the beginnings of one Jaden Daniels in what was a Rookie of the Year campaign. I'm sure we're all in agreement of that. So, this part 2, the rematch, part D, it's going to be something different. So
it's much closer, I believe. But we'll get into all of that.
Yeah. Okay, and then at the end
of the show, this is the season of rankings and seedings and all that stuff. I thought I'd give you guys a shot to seed a couple things, to rank a couple of subjects I'll give you, and you tell me how you would think they would
Okay.
sort out.
All right, we could go a lot of different directions with this.
We can.
Yeah, I like it.
All
okay.
right,
We'll
cool.
be seating you later. Thank you, BK.
Thanks,
if you're listening and you want to watch, go to fox13news.com/nodpod. If you're watching and you want to listen or subscribe, take out your phone, tap the QR code on the screen in the bottom right-hand corner, and it'll send you to all of our shows. We invite you to leave a 5-star review. Subscribe, fox13news.com/nodpod. So this week is kind of, I guess it's the equivalent of like the portal in college football. Like the week going into the first round of games is like there's just a frenzy of head coaching vacancies that pop up around the NFL. So teams are trying to like focus on the biggest game of the year, and they have like assistant coaches that are taking Zoom interviews or being asked to go interview someplace else. But right now, as we sit taping this, there are 6 head coaching openings in the NFL. So let's go through it. And if we just had to guess, it's hard. These are hard things to pick, but we did it last year. I don't know that we got any right.
I think we nailed a couple.
Did we nail a couple? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Some of these are teams that have openings yet again, so they have a chance to get it right. Maybe they could go back and watch last year's show. All right. Let's. I don't want to start with this team because this is kind of my surprise pick. Let's start with the Saints. All right. Saints have an opening. for a new head coach who's coming to the NFC South.
You said this is your surprise pick?
No, this is not my surprise pick.
So, all right. So I'm not taking yours since you're going to go off the board with this one. So I think it's Aaron Glenn, your beloved Lions defensive coordinator. It kind of makes sense. He was on Sean Payton's staff as a defensive backs coach for 5 years, and he's done well with a Lions roster that didn't have a lot of talent when he left to join Dan Campbell up there. And even this season has had to, with all these injuries, has had to kind of scrap and patchwork together a capable defense. And they really 7th fewest points allowed in the league. I think he could be a good fit, a good culture guy, similar to what Campbell has established in Detroit, a good culture guy in New Orleans.
Well, I'm a big fan of Aaron Glenn, but this is a team that seems like it needs an offensive figurehead. They need that Sean Payton type figure. Dennis Allen obviously was the defensive guy, and a lot of times teams they want to flip the script. They want to go offense. The Saints' offense was awful this year, so I think they go Joe Brady. I think they go OC from up in Buffalo and get him to join the NFC South. How about the Jaguars?
Okay.
How about the Jaguars?
I was hoping you would say that next.
Yeah.
And we didn't
script
this out, but I think Joe Brady is the best fit for Trevor Lawrence.
Okay.
I think that's where Brady ends up.
Because he has like some similarities.
Well, I think he can get the most out of Lawrence just as he's certainly Josh Allen was already good. But Josh Allen was a bit turnover prone, which is the number one problem with Lawrence. And I think Brady can get the most out of him, help him cut down on turnovers. And what's attractive about that too is, Trevor needs some weapons, and the Jaguars have good cap space, $43 million, and they've got a top 5 pick coming up this year. You could really build something there.
Okay. I'm going to say Liam Cohen. Are you ready to lose another offensive coordinator after 1 year?
It seems to be a tradition.
I think I know it's crazy. It's like 1 year of proof, but the proof was so impressive that I think there's going to be a sense of desperation to try to get somebody that's like that next, right there. And maybe next year is too late. He may be too much of a hot commodity. So I think Liam Cohen goes this year. I don't want to see him go, but I could see a Jags team.
Another one and done for the Bucs OC.
How about the Jets? They're in a bind. They need somebody.
I was really kind of, you want the Jets to go. My first thought was offense, because we don't know what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers. Right. And even if he stays, clearly they still need help on offense. Breece Hall kind of disappeared this year, and things just weren't working with the receivers they brought in. But I just think, as the offense is getting time to figure things out, you want a guy that can maximize their best unit, which is their defense. So I'm going Brian Flores, the Vikings defensive coordinator. I'm bringing him in. His blitz-heavy scheme could work really well with all of those weapons that the Jets have on that side of the ball. He'd have a lot of talent to work with there.
I like defense, too, for the Jets, but I think they're going to go with Aaron Glenn, who played quite some time, kind of a fan favorite there. So I think that makes sense. He kind of appeals to Jets fans because he was a player.
Darn, I forgot he played for the Jets.
So there you go.
Okay.
Speaking of, how about the Patriots? This is now an opportunity to make good. They let Gerard Mayo go. They thought he was the heir apparent to Bill Belichick. And
they
Robert
never
Kraft
thought
says,
that.
Robert Kraft says, "Oops, that's on me, guys." So where are they going?
No, this is the slam dunk to me, and this is probably your surprise, knowing you. But it's Mike Vrabel. I mean, this is meant to be. You're looking at me with that look.
It's not my surprise. Okay, I picked him as well.
Well, we have to. Yeah. That's the only answer.
I think I picked him last year.
I think you did pick him last year, and that's why I said, it was never Gerard Mayo was never the heir apparent. This was the heir apparent. This is your beloved former Patriot, defensive-minded, knows how to get his guys to play tough. He's perfect for this, and he would just instill that mentality, that hard-nosed mentality that's such a part of the Patriot way.
Bears.
Oh boy, I've used a lot of names here. I think it's.
I'm torn on this one. I
think the best, and I've looked at this from the teams that I think will go offense, and this is where you've got to get someone that can maximize Caleb Williams, and also they have the most cap space to work with, $80 million, where you can pick up some. It's got to be Ben Johnson. Lions. I'm sorry, we're stripping all your assistants away, but I think there's interest there from both sides, and I think it's going to be Ben Johnson.
I'm not going Ben Johnson. In fact, I think maybe one of my bold takes is Ben Johnson is not going to accept another head coaching job. I just don't think that any of these are that. I think he's going to be picky again. Especially, part of it is look at the path forward in the NFC North. If you're the Bears, how am I getting around these 3 teams in front of me? I don't care if you have a year of – you saw what Caleb Williams is. He's going to get better. You got cap space, great. But you still have some really, really tough teams in this division. Do you want to step into that when the leash is so short? If you don't start producing right away, people start getting – they get a little irritated.
That's a good point.
So I'm actually going to go with – and I'm torn. So I'm gonna make my case for both. Todd Monken. I think Todd Monken would be a great fit in Chicago. I think his ability to what he's done in Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore's offense and how he stepped into that and like just made it sing even more. He could make that same pitch in Chicago with Caleb Williams. So I like Todd Monken. I think he should get an opportunity. I think that he should get a head coaching job. The Bears one makes sense to me. I also want to throw Pete Carroll out there. I know it was thrown out like he threw it out there like, hey, I want to be relevant again. But think about Pete Carroll is a great coach. He's a stabilizing coach. He's a culture building coach, and he knows how to develop quarterbacks as well. I mean, he's done that over the course of his career too. So, man, that's what Chicago needs. Like they need an infusion of good football culture. I think Pete Carroll could be a guy.
I don't think they want to go defense again after what they went through with Eberflus.
Yeah.
I like your Monken call though.
And finally, Raiders. Here's my surprise call.
Okay, here's where he's going to do it to us. I think it's Cliff Kingsbury.
Kingsbury.
Yes, the Kingsbury, yes. As I've said a couple of times on this podcast. Yeah. I think obviously they have to get a quarterback in the offseason, whether that's Shedeur Sanders or an early, someone in the first round, or it's a big free agent. I don't know. Maybe it's Sam Darnold. But you're going to have a situation where you have a new quarterback in a system and you want someone who can work with that person. And I think that Kingsbury, even though he wasn't impressive in Arizona, I think he's learned a lot, and I think he'll get another shot, and it could be with the Raiders.
Yeah, he looks very Vegas to me. Maybe I'm just thinking of like The Hangover, the movie, but I think they go out and hire Deion Sanders. I don't know. I have a feeling like if he's ever going to make that transition to the NFL, this might be the opportunity. I think he really wants to be able to coach his son. They have a head coaching opportunity. There's a quarterback opportunity. They have, I believe, a top 6 pick. I don't know.
Well, you talk about a guy that he looks Vegas now. That
it
he
seems
looks
like
Vegas.
It could be fit. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So that's my surprise pick.
Okay.
Hey, real quick before we move on to our guest, I just wanted to kind of go back through. We did preseason predictions at the beginning of the year. Okay, and so I'm just going to go real quick over which ones we nailed, okay?
2,
so,
both of them.
You got the top of the NFC South correct. You picked Tampa Bay and Atlanta. It was Tampa Bay and Atlanta. Outside of that, you picked the Lions to win the North.
Which everyone did.
You picked the Chiefs to win the AFC West. Other than that, you were awful. Yeah, you were awful. You didn't get anything right.
I didn't have the Ravens? What did I do in the
Did you have the Ravens?
North?
Yes. You did great. So Ravens, you actually picked the Ravens to win, and you got their final tally right too. So you picked them to finish.
Did I not pick that whole division correctly? 1 through 4?
Didn't. You picked Baltimore, Cincy, and Cleveland and Pittsburgh.
Okay, that's
so,
bad.
and it was Pittsburgh.
Okay, sorry I brought that up.
And yours truly, I picked correctly the NFC East. Philly, Washington, Dallas, New York.
You got that? You got the order?
In order.
Wow.
I picked the AFC South correctly in order. Houston, Indy, Jacksonville, Tennessee. I picked the NFC South in order. Tampa Bay, Atlanta, Carolina, New Orleans.
Very good.
Yeah.
Got them in order.
And I picked the Chargers to finish second in the AFC West, and I even picked their correct tally at 11-6. So this is just another shameless self-promotional thing.
Remind us next year to monetize this in some way, and I don't mean us bet on it. I mean we take your skill there and take it to the bookie.
All right.
You know.
All right. We got a bookie for you on the other side. He's a good friend, Grant Paulson from 106.7 The Fan up in Washington, D.C. He is our guest next to break down this big weekend tilt between the Commanders and the Bucs.
Snowy up there.
What do you say we preview this matchup between the Bucs and the Commanders this weekend? And for that, a good friend of mine, a colleague that I used to work with when I worked in D.C. Back in the day, he is He's a big time guy out there. I mean, he's on the TV thing. He's on the interwebs. He's on the radio, of course, from 106.7 The Fan, the big radio show out there in D.C. He is Grant Paulson. Grant, great to see you, buddy.
Scotty, it has been good to this week get back on your radar. You forgot me. You dropped me like a ton of bricks. Then I had you on my radio show. Now I get to come on your programming. We reunite for the Scott Smith Bowl. The Commanders and the Bucs, DC versus Tampa. Let's do this.
Yeah, I'm sorry you got the shorter end of that stick. I mean, not as many people pay attention to what we do here, but for you, yeah, you guys are killing it. All right, so Commanders, they won 4 games last year, 3 years without a winning record. You got snow on the ground. You got playoff football in the air. What is DC like this week as we get ready for this matchup?
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, frankly, you'd get a kick out of it as someone who was here and covered this team during the part of the doldrums. But I guess the cliff notes for people in Tampa are, for the better part of 30 years when Dan Snyder was running this team, from 1999 for about 25 years, he was at the controls until just about 2 years ago. They had no chance. It was a bad ownership group and situation. They never had a general manager. They never had a situation where a football exec GM picked a head coach who picked a quarterback and kind of the pillar of how the NFL works. So they now have a new ownership group that everybody loves. No longer the monster under the bed, the big bad Dan Snyder. He's gone. And in just their first season running this thing, it's their second year with the team, but really their first year with their fingerprints on the outfit. They've got a football exec GM that they hired in Adam Peters to come over from the 49ers, who's got 3 Super Bowl rings from his past in the NFL. He hired Dan Quinn as a second-time head coach who helped this team win 12 games, the most by any first-year head coach this season. And they've got a rookie quarterback who they drafted second overall, and it was a home run of a season at least. We'll see what happens in the future, but it looks like a long-term answer at QB in the very exciting talent Jaden Daniels. So, man, people are abuzz. This city is just absolutely in a football frenzy, and they're really excited to see what happens this weekend.
Yeah, let's talk Jaden Daniels a little more. I mean, we've heard what the national media has said about him and deserving of all the praise. What is the take there with you guys there in the Washington, in the Beltway area there with this just phenomenal talent? Year one, breaking RG3's rushing record for quarterbacks and just kind of putting this offense on his back quite often, really.
Yeah, it's been amazing to watch, honestly. He set the all-time rookie quarterbacking record for both rushing yards with 891 and completion percentage. I think a lot of people look at him and they see he's scrambled 25 more times than anybody else, and maybe there's this idea that he's just a runner or that this is like a Lamar Jackson 2.0 situation. I mean, he is a really capable, competent passer in the pocket. He's accurate. He throws with really good ball placement and anticipation. I've been really impressed with that since really getting to see him for the first time at training camp. The thing I love most about him is the moment's never been too big. In the first half of the year, he really never made mistakes, didn't turn the ball over. And then as the year went on, and certainly in the stretch run here, he's had some issues, right, where he's thrown an interception or he's had to bounce back. He had a game against the Eagles this month where he threw his 2 worst picks of the year probably, and yet he threw 5 touchdowns, and he just kept overcoming. And he goes out on the field, and you would never know what kind of game he's having. He's got a veteran ability in that way. So really, really admirable kid. He works his butt off. All the reports behind the scenes from day one have been amazing. Veterans that get in at 5 or 6 a.m. and he's already there watching the tape. Like, there's just nothing not to like. It's almost too good to be true, but the proof's been in the pudding on the field. He's been outstanding. So people are really, really excited about the player, the person. It seems like they might have finally gotten it right at quarterback.
So other than the obvious growth from week 1 to now the playoffs out of Daniels, what's different about the Commanders since the week 1 meeting that we had here at Raymond James Stadium?
Yeah, it's a great question. So Daniels is the number one answer, just to kind of reiterate. I mean, that game, they couldn't throw the ball at all. He didn't really involve the receivers. He ran all over the place. I think he had like 16 runs for 88 yards or something, but he didn't throw the ball effectively in any way. And that has changed massively, really, as of 2 weeks after that, but throughout the whole season. The other thing I would say is that as the year went on defensively, they did a better job getting pass rush. It's been inconsistent. It's not a hallmark of this team by any means, but Dante Fowler Jr. ended up with 10.5 sacks. They were able to get some rush, not only from the outside on the other side from Dorrance Armstrong late in the year, but Frankie Louvu is a really good rusher, off-ball linebacker they'll send through the interior. The A-gap will also bring them off the edge. So early in the year, I thought that was a real problem, and at times they were able to do much better in that regard. The other thing I would say is that early in the season, they had a hard time getting Terry McLaurin involved. That Tampa game, as I said, wide receivers weren't really clicking with Daniels yet. McLaurin went on to break the franchise record with 13 touchdown catches, had a monster season, and they've gotten a lot of production down the depth chart at receiver from some guys that I don't think any of us covering this team thought would be all that helpful. Olamide Zaccheaus, a wideout who caught 10 balls last year in Philly, had a 7-catch game with a couple touchdowns a couple weeks ago. Jamison Crowder, who's been in the league for a decade and was here when they last had a playoff game when fans were allowed to attend in 2015. He's now helping this team as a guy that nobody really thought would be a fixture. So they've had some players come on and break out positively. Negatively, they run the ball a lot worse than they did early in the year. That's been a big problem. And over the last couple of weeks, guys, their pass protection has become pretty leaky. In the first 11 games, they allowed 4 or more sacks once. In the last 6 games, they've allowed 4 or more sacks 4 times. So that's become a bit of an issue here down the stretch.
Well, they just picked up Shaq Barrett off the couch, so maybe this is the time he knocks off some of that rust.
Plug him in, yeah.
When I look at the bigger picture, AFC, the playoff side seems very top heavy. Any of those teams on the top end, the Bills, the Ravens, they could win the whole thing. In the NFC side of things, it seems like a lot of good teams, but more evenly balanced. Who do you think is the easiest draw on the NFC side of things if you had to pick one?
Well, I mean, to me, the conference is tiered with Detroit being the cream of the crop, with Philadelphia 1 and 2. I think that the conference seeding is correct there. Those are the toughest teams to play. Specific to though the bottom of the conference, I mean, I think whereas the AFC is a little top heavy, I kind of think the NFC is wide open. Like if you were to tell me right now the Bucs went on a run, wouldn't surprise me. You got a quarterback on a heater, right? 40 touchdowns, 4,500 yards. Jalen McMillan coming on, able to run the ball in, stop the run, which this time of year becomes critical. If you told me Washington wins multiple playoff games, which I'm not banking on, I don't think they're good enough to, just for your own, Tampa folks' knowledge. I mean, they have 1 win against a team all year that was over 500. At the end of the season. That was Philly. And in that game a couple weeks ago, they were down 2 touchdowns when Jalen Hurts got hurt. And Kenny Pickett came in and they came back to win. So, I mean, they took advantage of the schedule. But I still think, there's things about all these teams that are scary. Daniels is not fun to play. He could put a cape on and fly around and win you a football game. The Bucs for Washington are a real problem. If you look at the back of the conference, Green Bay goes in limping. They lost 2 straight games. Scott, the Packers are a very physical, run-first, heavy team that I don't think is going to be a fun team to play in this postseason. Like, if Hurts isn't quite right for Philly, who's outstanding, and they lost at home to Green Bay, would that shock you? I don't think so at all. Like, look at the betting lines. You see an 8.5, 9-point line in the AFC side. You don't see that in the NFC. It's 2.5 points, 3 points, 3.5 max. I think that's about right. I think these teams are all jumbled up. Like, the worst team to get in, Green Bay, had a chance 2 weeks ago to beat Minnesota to basically be playing for a top 3 seed still at that point. Yeah. So I love this conference and this playoff picture. I think it's going to be absolutely captivating.
Yeah, what about on the AFC side? It's seeded, as you said, perhaps is a little more top-heavy. Here we are, we look up and it's the Chiefs who control the playoffs right there at Arrowhead. It's hard to look at this, and right now they're plus 350, second best odds to win the Super Bowl. But it's hard to think that I shouldn't just take them. I mean, the Chiefs seem to have once again, even with some questionable play on offense, engineered things to where you got to go through Arrowhead to get to the Lombardi Trophy again, and it's hard to bet against these guys.
It is. I mean, they just seem so inevitable. Like, this past week, they wanted nothing to do with even playing the Broncos. I think twofold, right? They were resting, but even by their standards, that performance as a resting team was pretty gross. I think they didn't want Cincinnati anywhere near the playoffs. Probably wasn't far from their minds either. So Denver beats them 38-0. But you could just wash that away. That's irrelevant, means nothing. They were 15-1. And inevitable is the word I use for them, because they would play badly and win. They would play okay and win. They would play great and still win close. Like, it was just those plays at the end of the game. And they could definitely do that throughout the playoffs. I think Buffalo's good enough to beat them for sure. I mean, the thing about the AFC is the two worst teams that are in the playoffs right now, like the easiest teams to play, to answer Scott's question from a few minutes ago, are both in the AFC, in my opinion, right now. And that's the Steelers, who have lost every game this month and aren't getting strong play from Russell Wilson, who's cooled off, and who just offensively are a shell of what they were a couple months ago. And then the Houston Texans, who were everybody's kind of flavor of the month to start the season after the monster year C.J. Stroud had as a rookie last year. But they are a worse version of themselves from a season ago. And you could see that the Chargers on the road are favored in that game for good reason. So I think it's Kansas City, it's Buffalo. The one team I will say that I think is frisky down the board in terms of, like, not one of the favorites in betting odds, I think the Chargers are going to be a gigantic pain in the butt, man. Jim Harbaugh is a bit of a hurricane, but like, he wins everywhere he goes. They have a great running game. They've played really well defensively here. Their defensive coordinator is one of the best assistant in all of football this year, and may well get some head coaching interviews that they pulled over from Michigan. But on top of that, Justin Herbert's come on. I mean, they're starting to get their play action game going, the vertical passing game going, putting up numbers in the passing game for the first time all year over the last few weeks. My guess is they have to play the Chiefs, but that's a division game. You've played them twice. You've played them competitively at one point this year. Like, third time could be the charm. I would say that if you want me to label like a frisky team down the board a little bit, I think the Chargers would be that club for me. I don't really see Denver or Pittsburgh or somebody like that knocking off one of the really good teams in the AFC.
Grant is just setting the table for us. On the other side, we're going to actually go through our picks for this Super Wild Card weekend. Stick around. Grant Paulson for 106.7 The Fan up in D.C. is our guest. He's joining us for picks coming up on the other side. All right, it's time to make some picks for the big games this weekend, and for that, we welcome back in from 106.7 The Fan up in Washington, D.C. He is Grant Paulson. Grant, all right, let's start right out of the gates. This is your Saturday matchup. Chargers 2.5-point favorites as they head to Texas, or to take on those Texans. It's a 4:30 kick. Who you like?
Yeah, I guess I buried the lead here a little bit from a few moments ago, but I'm laying 2.5 with the Chargers. I think this will be maybe the easiest game to pick of the weekend for me. I'm just not a believer in the Texans and how they're playing. I don't think the Chargers are a good matchup from them. I think they bully them up front in this game.
Yeah, I'm going to roll with Grant there. No Dell, no Diggs, no protection for C.J. Stroud, and I think that Chargers top scoring defense in the league. I think they're going to get it done. Give me the Chargers too.
Yeah, Houston, I mean, they have, one kind of wild win. I think it was back in Week 5 against Buffalo. Outside of that, they haven't beaten any quality opponents. Harbaugh plays a little game of keep away. I like the Chargers as well. All right, Steelers at Ravens, your Saturday night game. Steelers are 10-point dogs heading to Charm City. Who you like, Grant?
Ravens will win. Steelers will cover. Is Mike Tomlin getting points? If the answer is yes, then you take Mike Tomlin and those points. And generally, by the way, it's like 3, 4, maybe 5 if you're lucky. I'm getting 10 with Mike Tomlin. I mean, I haven't been this excited to make a bet in a while, I'll be honest. But they're not good enough to beat Baltimore, unfortunately. They need a pretty inspired game from Russell Wilson. And they, frankly, need Lamar Jackson to be off. Missing throws, turning the ball over a couple times. I don't see it at home for Baltimore. So Ravens win, Steelers cover.
Yeah, well, Lamar hasn't been off, and I don't know if he's been off any this season. I will lay those points with the Ravens. December 21st, this same game was played. Ravens win by 17 in Baltimore. And the two teams have, since that time, the Steelers have gotten worse, and the Ravens seem to have improved. So I'm going to take the Ravens with that big point total there.
Yeah, Steelers, they've been taking it. They've been struggling defensively, and I like the word harbinger. I want to use that, and that was what we saw back on the December 21st
use
game.
That. Mm-hmm.
Derrick Henry ran for 160+. I like Baltimore to cover this one as well. All right, Broncos at Buffalo. The Bills, 9-point favorites. Your 1 o'clock kick on Sunday, Grant.
So I could see Denver's defense making a couple plays and keeping this one close, but I'm rolling with the Bills. I think Lamar Jackson's become the popular MVP choice, and if he wins it, it'll be well earned. He's been the best player in football this year. But my MVP is Josh Allen. I think it's his time. I think he has been the most important player and maybe the most valuable overall player to the best team in football. I think they cover this number, win by double digits. It's been a good run for Denver. Bo Nix is coming off of one of the great statistical games of the season last week against the Chiefs. But they're going from pummeling a Chiefs team that was playing guys, that probably won't see the field in the playoffs to leveling up against Buffalo. And that might be the toughest place to go play of any of the matchups in this opening round of the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm rolling with Grant on this one. I believe the Bills are going to take care of business there. This Denver defense is scrappy. They could possibly muddy this up enough. Josh Allen is just playing like Superman right now. He is. I would give him the MVP. It's a close race, closest MVP race I think we've had in a very long time. But I think the Bills will have enough on defense, and with Allen there doing his thing to cover those points. So give me the Bills with the points.
The fact that in our last segment, Grant said that he doesn't think the Broncos are one of the frisky teams makes me feel like they're going to be one of the frisky teams. I'm going with the Denver Broncos to cover. They will not win. They won't win. The Buffalo Bills are way too talented, but I like it closer than 9. So let me take the Broncos and those points. All right here on Fox, it's the Packers paying a visit to Philly. 4.5-point favorites are those Eagles for a Sunday 4:30 kick right here on Fox. Who you like, Grant?
This, to me, is the hardest game to predict this weekend because there's a little bit of uncertainty at quarterback. Hurts will be out of concussion protocol. They expect him to go. But remember, he didn't play in the final couple of weeks of the season and then missed some practice time to start the week. And, of course, on the other side, the starting quarterback Jordan Love's also had now some treatment this week and been on the injury report with an elbow. So I don't love picking this game. I'm probably going to stay away from it in reality. But for the sake of the convo, I think if I was making a bet, I would probably take the Packers in points. I think it'll be very close. I think this is probably a field goal game late. I'll say the Eagles win by a field goal, and I'll take Green Bay to cover.
Okay, I like the Birds. Give me those dirty Birds. I'm just going with the better weapons on offense here, and Saquon Barkley.
You got a blowout.
I think they win
Double
by
digit.
I think they cover. What do you want me to say? All right. You want me to say Eagles?
You're very confident out of the
gates.
gates.
Okay.
I'm torn like Grant here, but you seem very confident.
This was my third easiest pick. If I'm power ranking my picks, this is the third easiest one. I mean, this Packers offense, limited. Christian Watson goes down with an ACL, and I just don't think they're going to be able to. This Eagles defense, I'm trusting the team that has played the most consistent defense on this side, and Saquon Barkley, and so I think the Eagles are going to win by a touchdown.
I'm torn too. I'm torn like Grant. I could see this Packers team being feisty. I think they kind of give them a run for their money, and Jordan Love, hopefully fully healthy, ready to go. A little bit of magic there, and maybe makes it close. I think in the end, it's probably the Eagles by a point or two. So yeah, Packers and the points. How about Commanders at Bucs? The game that you're on to discuss. The Bucs come in; they're field goal favorites at home. Sunday night kickoff. Grant, who you like?
So I just said the last game we did was the hardest to pick. I probably would have this as the second most difficult. Having said that, I'll take Tampa to cover. I don't think it's going to be by a lot, but I'm predicting a 27-23, maybe 30-24, 26 kind of game. I think the reason that, first of all, the fact that this is the highest total of the weekend makes perfect sense to me. I think both teams are going to move the ball and score points. I like Washington matching up against the Bucs secondary to throw the football a little bit. I don't think the Commanders will be able to run the ball at all. My concern, though, and the reason I've got Tampa winning, I don't see what Washington takes away. I think Bucky Irving goes for 100 yards and Tampa runs the ball. And this Commanders corner room is not very good. It's a weakness. They should have Marshawn Lattimore back to help out against Mike Evans. But I could see Jalen McMillan going 6 or 7 catches, 70 to 100 yards and a touchdown. So I'll say Tampa Bay by 4 points.
I like it. And of course, I'm not picking against the Bucs. That would be sacrilege around these parts here. But I do think it's a matchup that works out well in the Bucs' favor. And I say that mainly because of the Commanders' problems on run defense and the way the Bucs can run the ball. Liam Cohen, a very balanced attack. And I think you're right. Bucky will have a big game. Rashad White, too. And Baker with his legs when it's playoff time and crunch time. And division clinching time, Baker's going to take off and get you a few first downs with those legs of his. So I do think the goal is to keep Jaden Daniels on the bench, so you kind of take some of the air out of the game. You run the ball, control the clock, and I think the Bucs win and cover.
Yeah, I like the Bucs offense against the Washington defense. I think they will be able to run the ball to the point that you both have made. I do think that there's going to be a problem in terms of getting to the quarterback. I think if they try to draw up too many blitzes, which is something that Todd Bowles is inclined to do, a guy like Jaden Daniels is going to make you pay. He's just too quick, and so I do think a lot of points, but in the end, I think the Bucs, this line's about right for me. I think they probably win by a field goal, so we'll just take the Bucs and the points, but it's probably going to be a push. And then finally, Monday night, Vikings at Rams. Vikings, 1.5-point favorites. Though they have won 14 games this year, as they hit the road, slight edge to those Minnesota Vikings. Who do you like, Grant?
I think Minnesota covers. I think Sean McVay is going to regret his Week 18 decision that I found confounding and I don't really understand, where he sat all of his starters with the possibility of wrapping up the 3 seed and playing Washington, and instead allowed the Bucs to just have to hold serve against the Saints, which thanks to their second half they were able to do, and move ahead of the Rams, and then you fall into what was an obvious then matchup with either Detroit or Minnesota, and thank God for them it's not Detroit. But even still, I mean, the Vikings are, you think that's a picnic? You got to go out and defend Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, the way Aaron Jones is running the football, and the Brian Flores defense is a turnover machine. So I actually think the Vikings roll in this game. I like Sean McVay a lot. You and I covered him here. I think you were still here, Scotty, when he was here in D.C., but I really don't think that decision made any sense, and I think it backfires on him. This is probably one of my most confident plays of the weekend. I like the Vikings to win the game.
Yes, and I say this is one of my most confident plays of the weekend in the other direction, because here's what will go on here. This Brian Flores defense loves to blitz. You know who makes defenses pay for blitzing? It's this young man named Matthew Stafford. He's going to carve him up as he did back in Week 8. You know, you got a Cooper Kupp and Puka are both healthy. And plus, I just trust in this situation – I like the Vikings. You know, I like Sam Darnold. I like O'Connell, but I just trust the better coach and the better quarterback in these playoff situations. So give me those Rams.
I think that little spiky-haired savant was playing some 4D chess. I think he knew exactly what he was doing when he decided to bench his guys. I think he likes the matchup out of the NFC North for whatever reason. I don't know. I don't know if it's like going up against O'Connell again. I don't. But I do. Stafford in this situation, they have just a little bit more playoff experience. And I'm still waiting for the pedals to wilt on Sam Darnold. And I think we
saw the beginning of that.
I think we started to see it a little bit. So I'm going to say that I'm going to go upset Rams, win it out in SoFi. Hey, we are so glad that you joined us, Grant. Are you coming to Tampa for the game?
Yeah, I am. I'm flying in on Sunday morning.
Have you got your reservation at Burns yet? Is that set? Our big steakhouse?
Yeah, I will be there. You're going to find me there. The problem is it's a one and done for your boy, so it's like less than 24 hours. So it'll probably be a late lunchtime reservation if they have them.
All right.
Well, the French onion soup is good all day long. Bring some snow with you, but not much. Just a little.
Yeah, and I'll put some in my pocket and see if it gets there.
There we go.
Good stuff. He is Grant Paulson from 106.7 The Fan in Washington, D.C. Thank you so much, Grant. All right, coming up on the other side, it is time for the fun block. We have a series of questions that BK has lined out for us. Multiple choice, I believe?
My brain is hurting already.
Okay, we're going to jump into it. The fun block is next. Bring in producer BK, Brian King. All right, so this game that you've constructed for us today is kind of in step with, well, there's been a lot of rankings. We've had seedings in the NFL playoffs. We've had rankings in college football, and now we're going to do some more rankings.
Right. Various rankings. But you guys know sports. You guys know pop culture. So, let's just mix the two, throw them in there.
Oh, boy.
And let you start telling me what your top 4 of each of these categories are, okay?
Great.
Okay, we'll just start. If you talked about it earlier in the show, the NFL vacancies and the jobs here. Here's the 6 jobs open in NFL. I want you to rank 1 through 4. Just tell me your top 4 best job opportunity.
I didn't realize we had dry erase boards.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is always fun when he makes me expose my terrible handwriting. Okay, so we're ranking what again, Brian?
The top 4, the best job
of these
opportunities. Yeah, which one's the best jobs?
All right.
Okay.
Let me see my choices again. I'm confident in the first one, and that's about it.
What you got?
Wow.
I have the Patriots, the Raiders, the Bears, and the Saints.
I have almost exactly. I have the Patriots, the Raiders, the Bears, and the Jaguars.
You see me mark out the Jags?
I saw you did that.
Yeah, I didn't want to be
Just 'cause
exactly
you glanced
like you.
over here?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of stated some of the reasons why. For me, ownership is a huge part of it, and I know that they just had a one and done with Mayo, but I think Robert Kraft and kind of the legacy they have up in New England, plus you have a young quarterback that has talent. The Chicago job, again, it's the division that you're in, and so you can have all the ability and you can have a young quarterback, but there's still a learning curve, and you're having to face these teams twice a year, which to me that's just tough. Raiders, you got a high draft pick.
Yeah.
You got a new stadium.
You got Tom
you
Brady.
have willing ownership.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then the Jags, I think they still have some good young pieces there. So
Glad we're all synced up now on that.
Okay, how about this one here? This is we've all watched Michael Penix in the last 3 weeks. Just light it up. The guy, you can tell he's going to have a pretty good future there in Atlanta. I want you to give me the best, rank these top 4 former NFL quarterbacks that are left-handed. Steve Young, Michael Vick, Ken Stabler, and Tim Tebow.
Ooh, what a list.
Best to 4th.
is this just NFL?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Reveal.
What you got?
Okay, a little recency bias, but yeah, I got Young, Stabler, Vick, and Tebow.
I have Young, Vick, Stabler, and Tebow. Sounds like a good law firm, too.
It does.
Where are you at on that, BK?
I was torn between Stabler and Vick,
Yeah.
but I think Stabler had a good postseason stuff. And I think Tebow, if I'm not wrong, he was the last person to throw a touchdown in a playoff game for the Broncos.
Not possible.
Probably,
Is that correct?
probably is correct.
Is it really? Yes, he did.
I think that's correct.
Yeah.
Okay, how about this one? This is in y'all's wheelhouse. I want the best. Rank these 4 secondary characters of the Seinfeld show. Okay? 1 being the best, 4 being the worst. Putty, Jackie Childs, Uncle Leo, or Jay Peterman. Of those secondary characters, which one do you think was the best? This is easy. Come on.
That's tough. Couldn't you have put I didn't watch as much Seinfeld as Scott. Couldn't you have put like a Frank Costanza on there or something?
But I thought he was in there quite
He's
often.
Not, quite a secondary. These
Yeah.
are. I got Putty, Jay Peterman. I'm kind of torn. I think it's kind of like 1A, 1B there. So Putty, Jay Peterman, Jackie Childs, and Uncle Leo.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry with respect to Jackie Childs for not remembering him. I've got Putty, clearly the best of these 4. Peterman was great though. He caused such consternation for Elaine. He was really good.
Yes.
And then I've got Childs only because I put him above Leo because I just didn't like Uncle Leo.
Jackie Childs was the one that negotiated the great coffee deal for Kramer. Remember that? It was a lifetime supply of coffee and deal.
That's it.
He was-
All right, good job. How about this one? I thought of this one at the game at the Rely Quest Bowl. Those 2 iconic helmets from Michigan and Alabama. I want to know of the iconic helmets, what are these? Rank these 4 that do not have that center stripe down it.
Oh wow! This
Okay.
is going to be harder. This may be the hardest
No
one.
center stripe. So Notre Dame.
I love helmets. I
Texas.
love these helmets.
I do too. Texas, Notre Dame, Florida State, and Southern Cal.
I love helmets so much.
Without that center stripe.
And none of these have changed over the years, huh?
No. I mean, like Texas had a numbers on it there for a while, but.
So I got mine.
Okay,
I mean, I think it's Notre Dame, probably not even close, followed by USC, Florida State, and Texas.
It's Notre Dame by a long shot, not a Longhorn. Then
You have Texas above
Then I have
FSU.
USC. I have Texas and FSU. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
I don't
wouldn't
want to
have put
offend,
I would
and I'm
put
not
Texas
a
over
listen,
FSU.
listeners, viewers. I'm not a Gator fan, and I love Florida State, but I just
I mean,
think
Texas
that
is
long
way more iconic. I mean, Florida State
exactly.
is
Thank
way
you.
more.
Texas is way more iconic. You
No,
see
it's
that
not.
Longhorn, you recognize it everywhere, and I love steak. All right, I like what the steak. I like what the what comes from the Longhorn is good for me.
You know what my pet peeve with that Texas helmet is that the Longhorn on the helmet is a different color orange than their jersey. It's always bugged me. They can't match it up. They either make it looks like a deeper deep orange. I always thought it was my TV. Then I saw Texas up once.
These are things that bother BK. That should be a new podcast.
Yeah,
Things
that bother
that
BK.
just irritates, and that's
We
why
can do
I
a
did
true or
that.
false segment, things that bother BK,
There
and
you
we'll
go.
try to guess if they do bother you.
You know, they can get McConaughey to fix that color.
They should, but
situation.
have y'all not noticed that? I mean, that's just,
I don't think I
about
have.
those things,
No.
Brian.
it irritates
Yeah,
me. But
I don't care about jersey color.
well, good job, guys.
Is
That was a
it?
fun
Are we
game.
That
done?
was it. Yeah, that was it.
Okay. Thanks, BK.
Thanks, guys.
Well, that was a fun little show.
First one of
Nice way-
2025.
Nice way to
It's in
kick
the
off the
Bucs.
new year.
Yeah.
Much thanks to our guest, Grant Paulson. Much thanks to our studio crew. You know what? This studio crew in 2025, I think, is even better than 2024.
Isn't it the same
It's
people?
the same one. It's Mariah on the jib. We got Chris on the ones and twos. I think we got Ronnie on the audio board. BK back in the booth. For Chris, I'm Scott. Until the next time we are on, there are no off days.
Never.